Good morning. Good morning. Oh my. This is a day that the Lord has made. Let us all rejoice and be glad in it. Wow. As I feel today, can I just get an applause to welcome you here today? All right. Hi, everybody. Well, I'm Reverend Dr. Barry Staples, and you have now entered Race and Cultures, Bridging the Divides. We are part of Race and Ethics Corporation. And again, my co-host is not with me today, Rev Jennifer Staples. She's out there, as we say, beating the pavement, doing what she does so well, and that's help people. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, I had no idea how much stuff is happening here locally in your area of the country or around the world. But guess what? I opened my eyes up. I tell you all the time, I'm woke. Oh my. Yeah, I'm woke. Yeah, isn't it kind of neat? I've been telling about being woke. Now I got woke. Woke, is interesting. I talked to you about, I mean, a lot of times when you are want to get your day started, people drink a cup of coffee just to get them going, just to wake them up. But there's a definition of woke on this cup, and it just tells you woke is having a badge of honor, knowledge, and wisdom. To have or be marked by an active awareness of systemic injustices and prejudices, especially those related to civil and human rights. I know it's not good optics. I'm covering up my face. Maybe y'all wouldn't mind if I cover my face up. I shouldn't say that. Anyway, as long as my wife likes it. Anyway, the third aspect of woke says on my cup here: wise, open-minded, kind, and empathetic. There's that word from empathy. Someone tried to tell us that empathy was a new age word that didn't mean anything. I won't even get into that yet again. And the other phrase of woke, the catch all, the opposite of being asleep. So if you're asleep, all those other variables won't work. You have to be woke. Uh, I happen to live in a country, state, a country. Well, maybe the countryside all stop us from being woke, but actually passing legislations against things of being woke, like reading books and having lectures and just being educated is not good because you make you too woke. There's a passage in the Bible that says, he who lacks vision will perish. I tell you something, we are living in a strange time. We're living in a strange time. As I told you, I often will say something because I am a man of faith, the true doctrine, not what I've been watching happening. And that's other people are doing podcasts related to the bastardization of Christian principles and Christianity. We've had in this country certain things happen that have gone somewhat unchallenged, and people just are staying asleep, not being woke about it. But I refuse to be asleep. I refuse to be asleep. I'm going to continually wake up every morning knowing that I'm going to live for righteousness. Certain things that I mentioned, books. So what's happening? We have a president, your president, that has gone out to try to stop people from having certain things in the Smithsonian, basically black culture, erasing, trying to erase history, trying to basically whitewash. Even I talked to you last week about Christopher Columbus, no longer Indigenous Peoples Day. The word indigenous, I guess, referencing to those people that really were here in America, that really had discovered America. Don't get it twisted. Christopher Columbus never stepped a foot in the United States of America. That's a myth that that's propaganda. I talked about that last episode. But I'd like to tell you, this came from actually Freddie Taylor. I belong with a group called Urban Intellectuals that's actually in my town of Chicago, emanates from. But Freddie Taylor, who's the CEO, he made this statement. We were in a talk last week. I want you to write this down. Being a professor, I'm always telling people to take notes. But he says, if you erase our past, you can control our future. There's things in our past that are not good, that are jumping right up at us every single day. I want to show you something. For example, this. Isn't it something? We have, and I talked about this in other episodes regarding our past. And it's in our present. 1922, on the right side there, you see the picture of the Klan. They're no longer wearing hoods anymore or white robes. The actions of ICE and other people involved is no different than the Klan, except the Klan used to be called the Night Riders. These people are riding in the daytime, snatching people up by the way they look, the color of their skin. And there's something I'd like to share with you about the past. I hate looking at this sometimes because I can't think this from 1922 to the year 2025. This is where we are. The stormtroopers under the Third Reich going to our cities and hurting people. I do agree that there are people that are criminals walking around, the worst of the worst. We had situation a few months ago, January 6th. There's a whole bunch of them, close to 1,600 that were worst of the worst, defecating in the people's house. And we see more of that destruction going on right now, and that's another topic to talk about at some point. But our people's house is being changed into a ballroom, certain area. I talked to you about Benjamin Banneker, the house that was built from the backs of slaves. Yes, folks, the White House was. So what does this all mean? Good question. I'm glad you asked. Where does this fit in from the Klan? I told you about a young man, and I'm going to just repeat this again. What is being controlled? Why is this happening? Why are these people out doing what they're doing? Who is behind this? Let me show you.
Who is sick and tired of being told to pick up my trash. And we have plenty of janitors who are paid.
This is Stephen Miller.
It's young Stephen Miller, and he's always been an asshole. He's Trump's deputy chief of staff for policy and homeland security advisor. He's also known as Trump's brain. Leaked emails show he's a white nationalist, which isn't surprising given that he's behind immigration policies like family separation and the Muslim travel ban. His emails show that in 2015 and 16, he
where it
promoted
continues.
white nationalist books, websites, and conspiracies to editors at Breitbart, a far-right news site. More than 80% of the 900 plus emails reviewed focused on race or immigration, referring to the debunked conspiracy theory that non-white people are deliberately white wiping white people off the planet. He referred to President Calvin Coolidge in his emails multiple times, backing his
Let's
eugenics-based
listen to
immigration
this.
policies once praised by Hitler. He was upset when some retailers stopped selling Confederate flags and symbols
Listen to
after the
this.
Charleston church shooting by white supremacist Dylan Roof, and encouraged Breitbart to create a counter-narrative. He often recommended articles from white nationalist websites like American
White
Renaissance
nationalist
and Beat It
websites.
to highlight interracial crime. He pushed for coverage of The Camp of the Saints, a French novel
Camp of
loved
the
by
Saints.
white nationalists for its racist depiction of non-white
Get rid of the
He
immigrants.
loves pushing false racist narratives so much that
I want
in
you to hear
2017,
this again.
as Trump's senior advisor, he reportedly blocked the release of a government study showing that refugees had a positive fiscal impact. But that's not all. He's friends with Richard Spencer, the most notorious white nationalist in the U.S. Spencer was a central figure to the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in 2017. This guy went to high school with Miller and had a lot to say.
Stephen Miller
Listen
was
to this.
never bullied in high school. Stephen Miller was the bully. He bullied the kids who are already marginalized by our society, and he continues to do that from the White House today.
Am I the only one who is sick
Is he the only
and
one?
tired of being told to pick up my trash?
Stephen Miller, White House Chief of Staff, also part of Homeland Security. Stephen Miller. White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor. Homeland Security, Christian Gnomes people that are out dressed in that picture I said. He also is a senior advisor to President of the White House speech writing. His current role, Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, United States Homeland Security Advisor since 2025. In other words, he's got the ear of the man in the White House, Stephen Miller. So where does Stephen Miller get his ideas from? You saw what he was saying in high school, and there's other things that he did in high school that were very inhumane, and how people shouldn't be treated. They shouldn't be in this country. I propose to you, just like Camp of the Saints was about the book about getting rid of immigrants and that type of thing, and the other white nationalist organizations that he belongs to. But where did he get his ideas from? I think this is your answer. So I want you to pay attention and observe this. The order. So I want to read to you slowly. Remember our past and our future. Some things in our past are not very good, but we need to understand the past so we can control our future. You erase our past, we have no frame of reference, so to speak. But this is something that happened in the past, but it seems so real today. In 1984, the white supremacist terrorist group, and I'm going to interject something in here. You will not hear the word supremacist very much, but a catch to that is the term nationalist. That has actually replaced the word white supremacist. So a white nationalist, well, okay, white nationalist, that means they love the nation. No, it's the nation they want to create. A white supremacist nation. So when you hear the word Christian nationalist, white nationalist, don't get it twisted. They're talking about white supremacy. So in 1984, the white supremacist terrorist group, the Order, carried out a record-setting armored car robbery near Ukiah, California, to fund its operations and support other extremist organizations. The stolen money was funneled to other white nationalist groups, including William Pierce's National Alliance and Fraser Glenn Miller's White Patriot Party. Let me give you a little idea. So what happened, this truck was going, I think, Highway 101 that out of San Francisco, and it was going up to Ukiah. So a truck pulled up in front and one pulled up in back. And these guys, I think 6 guys jumped out. They were heavily armed. They had high-powered military rifles, and they shot the windows out of that truck. Got inside and stole $3.8 million. Okay. The perpetrators, the robbery was committed by the Order, also known as the Silent Brotherhood, which was founded by Robert J. Matthews. The group sought to overthrow the U.S. government and establish a white-only nation. And as I speak right now, I think it's in Arkansas, there's this little town that's set up for whites only. I get no, you can't even explain this logically. So location amount, the heist occurred on the rural highway at 101 near Ukiah, north of San Francisco. The group stole 3.6 million in cash from a Brinks armored truck, which was the largest armored car heist at the time. Some sources report the amount as 3.8 million or 4.1 million from a series of robberies. So they did more than one robbery. So funding terrorists, the order used the stolen money to fund its criminal activities, which included murder and counterfeiting. I'll tell you about a murder that happened. The group also aimed to inject fake currency into the economy to undermine the government. So they actually were a big organization of counterfeiting. And back then, in 1984, there wasn't a lot of security around counterfeit. So they got away with that quite a bit. The white supremacist groups that received payments, the proceeds from the robbery were distributed to leaders and sympathetic white nationalist and neo-Nazi organizations. First one, the National Alliance, an organization founded by William Luther Pierce, author of the extremist novel, The Turner Diaries. The novel, which details the white supremacist revolution, served as an inspiration for the order. Stephen Miller knows about this. The White Patriot Party, a neo-Nazi group based in North Carolina, led by Frazier Glenn Miller Jr. He was later convicted on federal charges related to weapons and planning assassinations. Another group that received money was the Aryan Nations, an organization which Robert J. Matthews and other members of the order were affiliated before forming their own group, the order. Other white nationalist group also received money. The order also provided funding to the other less prominent white nationalist groups. They had it going on with their money. So the aftermath and then its convictions. The robbery played a key role in the undoing of the order, though. So in an internal informant, a member of the group, Tom Martinez, became an informant for the FBI after being caught passing those counterfeit currencies. His information led to the arrest of multiple members. Then Robert J. Matthews' death. He died in a standoff with the FBI on Whidbey Island, Washington, in December 1984. He was killed when a fire broke out during the siege. Convictions: more than 24 members of the order were eventually convicted on a variety of federal charges, including racketeering and armored car robbery. Others were later acquitted for the seditious conspiracy. This is interesting. Martyrdom. Despite being a terrorist and criminal, Matthew is still seen as a martyr by some white supremacists today. Can't get it twisted, folks. This is what's happening in our country. We have people in office that are part of this. So the order. So I'm just kind of curious. What about this Matthews guy? What was he really like? I have some information that I wanted to share, but I don't know if I can find it right now. Um, so this Matthews is looked at as being a martyr, okay, and he did all kinds of things. So I just want to share with you this here. This is what he looked like. Okay. Robert J. Matthews. He looked real innocent, doesn't he? But looks can be deceiving. That was Mr. Matthews. So what else do we know about um, Mr. Matthews? Well, we do know that he uh, had a family and he grew up um, no in a probably a pretty good family. I'm gonna see if I can find something here to share with you about him. Um, maybe I'll see if I can find it. Uh, I'm looking for it. Sometimes when you try to find something, my wife is always telling me I lose things, uh, and she's my person that finds things for me. But this Matthews family, when you look at from how he was raised and what he was like, you wouldn't think that he would have this kind of diabolical existence. But this is what his family. Robert J. Matthews was born in Marta, Texas, on January 16, 1953, to Johnny and Una Matthews. His family was a lower middle class. His father, Johnny Matthew, was of Scottish descent. Oh, an immigrant. Oh, can we say that? He was the mayor of Marta, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and a businessman and leader for the local Methodist Church. He fought during World War II. Well, he had some patriotism, but he was an immigrant. Ona and Johnny Matthews were married by a Presbyterian church, 1943 in Detroit. A lot of brothers and sisters lived there. The couple had three sons, all maybe 4 years apart, Grant Lee and Robert. His family moved often in his youth, seeking business opportunities. The family eventually settled in Phoenix, Arizona. When Matthew was 6 years old, his older brother, Grant, was diagnosed with tuberculosis. Excuse me, sorry about that. Schizophrenia, uh, and repeatedly attempted suicide. This resulted in Matthew's parents having to spend more time devoted to him than their other children, and some amount of neglect towards Lee and Robert, for which they felt guilt. Robert became closer with Lee as a result. So you see, you can try to blame it on the boogie here. Y'all don't know that song. That was the Jackson Five, and blame it on the boogie, blame it on the sunshine. So we have the thing with Matthews and his family comes from a Methodist background and those kinds of things. Then we have Stephen Miller, influenced by the order and Camp of the Saints. So what happened? What are some of the things the um, that the order did? Well, one thing, they had a lot of anti-Semitism um, in their hearts. So one of the things that they did, they killed this man, Alan Berg, out of Denver. He was a Jewish radio personality, shot to death, found shot to death. I won't read the article to you, but just to give you an idea of the malicious things that these nationalists will do. So Alan Berg was shot. Well, and it was not very pretty. He was shot, people, right here in his driveway. takes a lot of gonads to do that to a man where he lives, where he rests. That's this group, trust me. You've heard the stories of the Night Riders, the KKK, but don't get it twisted. Um, they're still here. They've taken the hoods off. They're walking around. They're doing all kinds of things. But what about Stephen Miller? Somebody has something to say about him. Let's listen to this.
Stephen Miller as an immigration hypocrite. What do you mean by that?
Have you ever met someone so obsessed with slamming the door shut they forgot it was once open for them? Meet Stephen Miller, senior advisor to President Trump and the chief architect of one of the most aggressive anti-immigration agendas in modern American history. But here's what they won't tell you on Fox News. If America had the immigration laws that Stephen Miller is pushing today, Stephen Miller wouldn't exist.
He's Jewish.
That's not speculation. That's family history, confirmed by his own uncle, Dr. David Glosser.
Our family history is entirely dependent upon the fact that our family was able to escape from a terrible situation in what is now the country of Belarus. In those days was part of the Russian Empire.
Your family first came here, I think, in the early 1900s.
The first of our particular group came over in 1903. They worked for a while peddling fruit and doing
Stephen Miller's his
and then they were able
sister
to wrap up enough
son.
money to bring over the rest of the immediate family. Everybody else who didn't make it, they were all swept away in the Holocaust and dead.
And Glosser isn't venting out of spite. He's speaking out of heartbreak. Had we not been able to enter America when we did, Glosser said, Stephen Miller would never exist. Let's rewind for a moment. In 1903, Miller's ancestors, Eastern European Jews, fled violent pogroms in what is now Belarus. They arrived in the United States with nothing, peddled fruit on the streets, worked in sweatshops, and eventually saved enough to bring over the rest of their family. The ones who made it to America lived. The ones who didn't were killed in the Holocaust.
And donuts look good.
That process, where one immigrant brings family over after finding safety, is called chain migration.
Chain
and today,
migration.
Stephen Miller is the one trying to dismantle it. The same legal mechanism that saved his entire family is now labeled a loophole by the administration he advises.
Think about this. His family came here, chain migration and all. Immigrants, just like Matthew's folks, immigrants. His uncle says, if we hadn't made it here through his father, grandparents, so on, Steve Miller would have been in the gas chamber, wouldn't have been born.
Let that sink in. Miller is behind Trump's harshest immigration policies, from the Muslim ban to family separation, to limiting legal asylum, to gutting refugee admissions, to ending DACA protections, to trying to rewrite the very foundation of legal immigration. And meanwhile, Trump, his boss and enabler, is married to a Slovenian immigrant whose own parents became United States citizens through, you guessed it, chain migration. Hypocrisy? That's just the appetizer. The main course is weaponized cruelty. Stephen Miller, the son of immigrants, is now helping lead a government that openly discriminates based on country of origin, language, and religion. Trump himself has called immigrants from Haiti diseased, said Nigerians live in huts, and wondered why we don't get more
Eating the
immigrants
dogs
from Norway.
and the cats.
As Glosser painfully put it, all those insults, they were once used against us, against Jews, Italians, Poles, Irish, Hungarians. That's how they talked about us. And now, Miller is recycling that same hate, just with new targets. But here's a question America ought to start asking. Did a black woman, a Latina, or a brown-skinned immigrant ever turn Stephen Miller down so hard that he spent his life trying to write people like her out of this country? Because for all his obsession with immigration, one thing's clear. He's never once tried to deport white immigrants. Not once. This isn't just political, it's personal, and well, it's historical betrayal. Because here's the truth. Stephen Miller is not defending America. He is erasing the very story that made his own life possible. What happens when the child of refugees grows up and slams the door on the next desperate family? What kind of man looks at the ladder that saved his family and sets it on fire? That's not just hypocrisy. That's, a legacy in reverse. And it ends in silence, suffering, and a nation that, well, forgets where it came from, just in time to lose what it was supposed to be.
There we have it, people. We have Stephen Miller, the architect behind all of this stuff that's going on. And um, you just can't make this stuff up. We've seen the violence. I've shown you clips of what's happening. We've seen Alan Berg being killed. When I'm looking at, there's not one immigrant that's been arrested. Um, so um, so there is a situation that's really interesting to try to spoil that. There's a policeman in Hanover Park. He has been there for couple weeks. So he overstayed his visa, but he's a police officer. Um, so he has been taken into custody in a very nice way. He wasn't thrown to the ground and beat. Um, so he he he's the he's the token, but don't get it twisted. This man is not going to be facing the same issues that the other people of color have been facing, black and brown folks and people with an accent. Um, so right now he's being kind of stood up for. So just today, actually, the day before yesterday, the Chicago Ice Field director addresses Hanover Park's officer arrest and Broadview facility access. So they don't want this man mistreated. Um, they want him to be treated with kid gloves. He says overstayed his visa for nearly a decade, so he doesn't need lawful status. Might be here legally and apply. So I have a feeling what's going to happen here. Tell me if I might be wrong. I think there's going to be some kind of one thing I can think of is grandfather clause, where they're going to exempt him some kind of way. But stay tuned about this guy. But mostly, you want to put on a scale 90.9% of these people are being taken in by ICE. Those people there, they on the left, they are actually going after people the way they look. So what else happens? Under this administration, we know that if you go against what they want, things happen. I talked about stochastic terrorism. Keep that in mind. Stochastic terrorism is very simple, that rhetoric and words like, if you don't go down there and stop this, we won't have a country. I'm going to go down there with you. And you hear the chants, hang Mike Pence, kill Nancy Pelosi, so on and so forth. They don't have to do anything. Just the rhetoric creates terrorism. That's what we're dealing with, folks. Even to this extent, I want you to watch carefully. So we have these nationalists now doing all kinds of things. So what else are they doing? This.
You can hear this thing burning.
A horrific fire ripped through the remote Edisto Beach home of a South Carolina judge on Saturday, leaving 3 people injured, including her ex-senator husband, who suffered broken bones after being forced to jump from the first floor to escape the blaze. Circuit Court Judge Diana Goodstein had been walking on a beach with her dogs when flames swallowed the home in the lush Jeremy K private gated the large property to burn to the ground.
I'm going to start this over because I want us to see the full impact of this. So here we have a judge's house on fire. Oh boy. Okay. Sometimes I have technical difficulties.
A horrific fire ripped through the remote Edisto Beach home of a South Carolina judge on Saturday, leaving 3 people injured, including her ex-senator husband, who suffered broken bones after being forced to jump from the first floor to escape the blaze.
I never did anything
Circuit Court Judge
wrong.
Diana Goodstein had been walking on a beach with her dogs when flames swallowed the home in the lush Jeremy K private gated community around midday. As plumes of black smoke were sent into the air and the fire engulfed the home, her husband, former state senator Arnold Goodstein, was trapped inside. Sources close to Goodstein's family confirmed Arnold was airlifted after breaking multiple bones in his hips, legs, and feet after escaping from the 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom home, according to Fitz News. 2 additional occupants were also reportedly rescued by several neighbors and paramedics from a marshy, remote area behind the 3-story home. Their identities have not been released. According to the St. Paul's Fire District, Arnold and 2 other individuals were reached by emergency workers in kayaks before they were hospitalized. Diana Goodstein, a South Carolina native, was elected to her first judgeship in May 1998. The 69-year-old has served continuously ever since, according to her biography. Her husband, Arnold Goodstein, reportedly served in the House and the South Carolina Senate in the 1970s as a Democrat representing Charleston County. He also led Somerville Homes, a large home-building business that ceased operations in 2008 and filed for a $61 million bankruptcy, the outlet said. The state law enforcement division is reportedly investigating the fire at the couple's home, though it is not yet clear what caused the large property to burn to the ground.
Just interesting, on the left side there, you see Illinois State Representative boxed in border. I saw his story. They put the thing that's not there, they actually put a gun in his face, boxed him in and held him at gunpoint in his car. Illinois State Representative Jen, I can't think of his name right now, but just to be real about this whole situation, we have people right now in our country that are part of this nationalist movement, supremacist movement. Don't get it twisted. That's the word. Just like we have right now, the American flag is actually being used in lieu of flying the Confederate flag. Think about it. So when people tell me things like, God bless you, I wonder what God are they talking about? When people tell me, God bless America, what kind of America are they trying to say they want to have? It makes no sense. I've said this when we first started our station here. Remember, racism is not based on logic. There's no logic behind it. If you're going to tell me I have to hate this person because of the way they look, that is bizarre. A person you know nothing about, just because the way they look. There is a caveat to that. It's called fear. It's called fear. And I want us to understand this fear. And a guy that I subscribe to, Tom Hartman, is an incredible person. A lot of good books out, but I want to read. Okay, wait a minute. I have to go back here. Uh, Start all over. Here we go. I want us to really take a look at this and try to understand it. Um, we're going to close out with Thomas and one more thing. Thomas Hartman. This is what he wrote, and I kind of glanced. His article had to do with fear, and he talked about um, the fear that is going on in this country right now, that people are dealing with, but also the fear that is being perpetrated on this country by people. And he writes the Hartman Report. He writes a lot of very fantastic articles. You can have a Substack, but I wanted to share this with you today. In this article, what he is titled, "Will Trump's Fear Factory be his greatest weapon or his ultimate undoing?" I'll say that again. Will Trump's fear factory be his greatest weapon or his ultimate undoing? So the first part of his article, he dealt with a lot of situations, and I didn't include that, but he talked about something that was very close to what Reagan did with Grenada related to the blowing up of ships and things like that. Let me read this to you, and it's going to cover some other dictators along with the one we have. Trump, in fact, is pretty much unique among both modern and historic figures who rode elective office to power and then turned their nations into dictatorships. None were as weak as Trump is today when they succeeded in consolidating enough power to eliminate their challenges and lock down the populace. All had a massively larger base. Consider this: Putin came to power just a few years after the Soviet Union had collapsed, and in the rubble of the nearly incoherent presidency of the severely alcoholic President Boris Yeltsin, when he became acting president in 1999 amid war in Chechnya and economic recovery, his approval rating vaulted from 31% to 80% in 3 months. He sustained 80 to 88% approval between 2003 and 2008, with popular acclaim for restoring order and boosting wages and pensions, even during controversial wars. His approval reflected genuine public trust, peaking at 86 to 88% following the 2008 war with Georgia and 89% after the 2014 annexation of Crimea. That's Putin. Then we have Orban. His early political career was marked by charisma and reformist credentials. In 1998, at 35, he became Hungary's youngest prime minister after leading Fidesz, a progressive student movement, to victory. His personal popularity was rooted in perception of competence, patriotism, and authenticity amid widespread post-Soviet disillusionment. Even critics acknowledge his ability to project a modern conservative vision that appealed to broad swaths of Hungarian society. Then Hartman talks about how he's written about how I was a Budapest the summer of night, how he was in Budapest in 1989 when, as a 26-year-old former student leader, he gave his first major speech cementing his then liberal reformist credentials, eventually catapulting him into power. So Orban and Putin became likable, right? Then we have Hitler. Hitler was in shambles from World War One, and Germany was in shambles. Sorry, Hitler's Germany was in shambles from World War One and the punishing demands of the Treaty of Versailles when Hitler was appointed chancellor in January of 1933. A bit over a year later, on August 19, 1934, referendum on merging the positions of president and chancellor into a single office, with him holding it, produced an 89% yes vote. He built the Autobahn, started Volkswagens, and rebuilt the country from the ashes of the war. Under his massive public works and social welfare programs, unemployment fell sharply after 1933 via public works rearmament from 34% in January 1933 to 14% by January 1936. Another thing that I know about Hitler, Hitler had an incredible group of scientists, and they did incredible things. Now, I used to be a director of a comprehensive drug treatment program, and one of the things that I discovered was Hitler and those scientists, they actually developed methadone. It's synthetic heroin to help people that were jonesing, on drugs of heroin. That's drug talk, jonesing. So Hitler would have been an incredible person if he wasn't crazy and wanted to be a god and wanted to kill people. I guess we can say that about all lunatics. That could have been something better than what we were presented, even Hitler, but he wasn't better. Then we had Mussolini. In Italy, Mussolini consolidated mass support through national restoration and charisma rather than coercion. His fascist party drew broad appeal by promising to end post war chaos and restore Italian greatness. There's that thing back to Columbus, you see. Mussolini's personal image, manly, decisive, and virile, was widely held in the Italian media. The Lateran Treaty of 1929, which reconciled Italy with the Catholic Church, skyrocketed his legitimacy from among Catholics and conservatives, cementing a decade of popularity across classes. Even the American public, as contemporaneous accounts noted, admired Mussolini's efficiency, quote, making the trains run on time, and national modernization during the 1920s. Looking at our own hemisphere, Fujimori succeeded in destroying democracy in Peru, and Bukele did the same in El Salvador. But both saw major crises that gave them over 80% approval ratings across their nation when they seized that kind of power. In Peru, as political scientist Jonathan Scheffler writes for Politico, inflation was so bad that a tube of toothpaste cost as much as a house had 5 years earlier. While El Salvador was both poor and overwhelmed by gangs that had seized control of most of the country. By contrast, Trump's approval rating is consistently low, even though he keeps lying about it as he claims a broad mandate. He didn't even break 50% of the popular vote in 2024 and lost the popular vote in 2016. As of October 20th, 2025, 44.2% approved and 52.1% disapproved of his presidency. And I think a few days later, it's up to 67% disapproval. President, according to Nate Silver's Silver Bulletin, the Real Clear Politics average gives him around 45%, while Gallup finds 40%, making him one of the least popular U.S. presidents at this stage in all of our history. His economic approval has sunk to 34%. This is what a 62. With 62, this is the word, the 62% content. With 62% disapproving of his behavior amid inflation and federal shutdown. But going to tear down the White House and put in the ballroom, spending more money, and federal shutdown, unrest. Unlike his predecessors or authoritarians in other countries that lost their democracies, his base remains intense but small. There's no evidence of major majoration enthusiasm existing outside of his core. In other words, majoritarian enthusiasm. In other words, a whole bunch of enthusiasm existing outside of his core partisan bloc. The few Republicans willing to defy him and speak up about Trump's unpopularity and that of his policies are often blunt and even see their own popularity increase because of their resistance. Marjorie Taylor Greene, boy, we all know bleach blonde, bad built body thing. That Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, told Semaphore yesterday that Trump's economic policies are ruining America and its popularity. She said, quote, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I can't see into the future, but I see Republicans losing the House of Representatives if Americans are continuing to go paycheck to paycheck. They'll definitely be going, okay, they'll definitely be going into the midterms looking through the lens of their bank account. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene. I I've not had a lot of good things about it, but she actually is telling the truth there. So, how does Trump hold on to power in the loyalty of Republican politicians? Fear, it turns out, is the cement that's holding the GOP together under Trump and get their house burnt down. His indictment of lifelong Republican James Comey and his partner of criminal grifter George Santos. Can you believe this? This man, liar, thief, killer, lied about his grandmamas and mamas and everybody else. George Santos, or unambiguous message to every Republican politician nation, he was saying in effect. He let this guy out of jail like he did to 1,600 other people in Roger Stone and all these people. Of course, he is a convicted felon himself. Birds of a feather flock together. Hmm. He says, stay with me and keep licking my boots. And I'll keep you safe, even if you commit horrible crimes. Cross me and I'll destroy you. That's what other people hear him saying. So far, it's working. But as Scheffler points out in Politico, wannabe strongmen like Trump only succeed in destroying democracy in wealthy nations about 1 in 4 times. Most often, as we recently saw in South Korea and Brazil, they fail and then suffer the consequences. Both former presidents are now in prison. For Trump and the people who are either excusing or actively participating in his corruption and naked crimes, holding on to power exclusively by fear is a dangerous game. Oh my goodness. I can't make this up, folks. This is what's happening to our country. We have things going on. And back in the day, we had John Adams in the year 1776, as you remember, was a year that we said that we hold these truths, self-evident to all men. They weren't looking at men like me and my color. But John Adams said in 1776, he says, fear is the foundation of most governments, but is so sordid and brutal a passion that Americans will not be likely to approve of any political institution which is founded on it. Fear only lasts so long, folks. There's a gospel song like, I'm so glad trouble don't last always. oh my Lord, what should I do? Trouble don't last always. But politicians like Trump and his lick spittles, eventually, I know what that word Hartman is something else, eventually find themselves trapped by the very fear they use to paralyze their party members into compliance or silence. As Winston Churchill famously said, you see these dictators on their pedestals, surrounded by the bayonets of their soldiers and the truncheons of their police. Yet in their hearts, there is unspoken fear. They are afraid of words and thoughts, words spoken abroad, thoughts stirring at home, all the more powerful because forbidden terrify them. Say that again. All the more powerful because forbidden terrify them. A little mouse of thought appears in the room, and even the mightiest potentates are thrown into panic. Think about that. This is why Trump, as noted above, is building such a massive police and military presence, along with constructing hundreds of new concentration camps across America. The fear. It is why he had to fire the commission that oversees the White House before taking a wrecking ball to the East Wing. It's why he's desperately trying to pack courts and government agencies with toadies who worship or fear him. He knows he only has a short window before the country truly fights back against his strong man attempts to turn America into a third world tin pot dictatorship with a royal family that's corruptly made billions off their brief moment in power. People don't realize this. He's even telling the Justice Department give him $230 million. For something he did, he broke the law. He stole documents. So he wants to get, quote, reimbursed for his criminal activity. Man, fearful men always lean on violence and the threat of violence because eventually the spell of the fear they're trying to cast across the nation is broken. No King's March. We saw it in the American Revolution when 57 men defied the terror King George III had imposed here when they signed their names, producing an instant death sentence from the British Crown to the declaration that ended. We mutually pledged to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. When enough people stand up against state terrorism to hit a critical mass, 3.5% of the population, according to political scientist Eric Chenoweth, others quickly joined them. The turnout for the No Kings marches suggests we're close to that. Think about it. Evangelist Billy Graham, praise the Lord, who were still, if he was still alive, would certainly be horrified by his corrupt son's behavior, reminded us. His son is drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak. Courage is contagious. When a brave man takes a stand, the spines of others are often stiffened. So take heart. No King's marches prove both Trump's widespread unpopularity and the fearlessness of an American public echoing over 2 centuries of our nation standing up to tin pot despots and wannabe dictators. We Americans, I say to you out there, have never tolerated a king or dictator, and we're not about to start now. This is by the Hartman Report. I wanted to just share that with everybody today. But it's something that we must pay attention to and understand that we're stronger together than we are apart. And so what does Trump do? what does he do to show his fear? He did certain things. Um, he did certain things to show his fear, and I think I have something here. I hate to close out with this, but this is what he did to show his fear to all of us about he was afraid of this No King's March. So he did this. He said he wasn't a king, but he has a crown on. You know what he's dumping? Poop. This is what I think of you, my American people, the citizens of America. I'll dump poop on you. And it's quoted by J.D. Vance. He worships him, gave him that crown to put on. Oh, look at that mighty sword, huh? My sword comes in a word and a helmet of salvation, the sword of truth. So, folks, I just wanted to let you know what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a person who rather poop on all of us than show us respect. That's what we have. I want to say to you that I am so glad to have you join me today. And we are Racing Cultures, Bridging the Divides. That's us. Go to the website, Racing Cultures, Bridging the Divides.com. Please like and subscribe. And up there's a QR code up there, up there. Just get your phone or whatever. You can tap that and you can make donations to our cause and to help out. And I would look forward to hearing from any of you. Make any comments and be nice, because I don't respond to negativity. What I'm doing may seem negative sometimes, but it's the truth. It's the truth. You know, I'm very serious about doing the right thing. Okay. So someone asked me once, what's the title of this show here? And today, I'd like to share with you. So what I talked about is this: white supremacy and its perpetual presence in the United States. Stephen Miller's influence by the order and current trends by Trump. This is our subject matter today. But I decided to do it afterwards because it kind of summarizes what I just shared with you. So I'm glad that you're with me today. And you welcome me with an applause. Thank you. Glad you've been here. It's been a wonderful time. Next time, may God be with all of you. May he keep you and hold you with his everlasting love, because I love all of you too. I do. So this is what you do to me sometimes. You make my heart flutter. That's how much I love you. Till next time, I'll be seeing you, and be safe, be careful, whatever you do. And as I said, God bless all of you. Please like and subscribe. You can donate to the cause also. Thank you. Have a very, very blessed weekend.